prior to having it, I wanted to win a world title. And I felt like that was taken away at the time, but I feel ever so close now to being able to achieve that. And, you know, there's a lot of good surfers out there right now. But I feel like I'm at a recovery point where, you know, I can give it my best shot. Whether or not that happens, that's a different story, but that's my goal. That's my dream. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, you know, you've gone and tried your best. And I feel like I've ticked off a lot of the boxes that with my recovery along the way, it's kind of been a bit of a health journey as well to be able to put myself into a place to go for a world title.
I've Owen Wright with me today. He's number 7 at the moment in the world in surfing, correct me if I'm wrong there. And has been around for a long time. Has had an epic journey from to so many different touch points and changes in his life since he started surfing. And I'm so honored that he made time to come into our office and record this podcast for us and for the listeners. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, cool. So cool. Hey, before we go into all the deep end, like, how did you actually get into surfing in the first place?
Well, a lot to do with my old man. He was just a keen surfer from a generation that was pretty frowned upon. Like surfing started out here in Australia, kind of as like the outcasts, the you know, the society's bludgers, and you know, his parents, it was kind of definitely not promoted at all. So he kind of was skipping off trains on the weekend and shooting down to Culburra, which is where I grew up, and then so his passion for surfing is where mine grew from.
Right. So you started really young?
Started really young, probably around 5 years old. Probably just in the water before that as well. And then we just, it just was nonstop, surfing. And, you know, you get to that age, I think around, you kind of, I reckon around 18, 19, I think, and you start to go, well, is this what I want to do, or is this something that I just have done my whole life? And it was definitely a passion of mine. So I was pretty thankful for the childhood and the opportunities that I had when I was growing up, which were just, you know, a dad that would stop work and take us to all these great surfing locations, and had us as a priority over work as such, and even, you know, taking us to different jobs to incorporate surf trips as well. So
very cool. Yeah.
Quite a good childhood.
And did you compete quite early on, or was it when you were 19 and you made that decision?
I competed from when I was about 10 years old. I wanted to compete in everything. I guess I'm just starting to figure that out now with my own, having a son myself, is like, and seeing kids a lot more, is that, you know, kids just have certain things that they just really want to do. And like I can remember my dad saying he was trying to hold us back, like you don't need to compete, don't do all these competitions. We ended up still doing about 6 or 7 competitions a year, even at the age of 10.
Wow!
So, but that was just, you know, that's where a big part of my friend group has come from. Just I've known these people forever.
Wow!
So, it's been, and they're all doing it at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
And when do you think it sort of took off for you? Well, I guess, you know, for some time it was sort of amateur, just, you know, a thing to do. But at one stage, you probably went really into the professional line, yeah?
I went into more professional. I think it was, I left school, and with that, Dad was like, well, you need to be doing 8 hours a day of something, you know. If you're not doing 8 hours a day of school or, you know, work, or you need to be filling your day with 8 hours a day of surfing, you know, he just was a pretty big believer in an idle mind was kind of got up to no good eventually. So I took it on a bit more seriously from then, and then I was on tour by 19. Oh well, I was doing tour events at 17, but full-time tour at 19.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
and that's 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
doing it ever since.
Very cool. And when you compete in that, so would you say that everyone who is sort of in that circle, they have worked for a long time towards it and have just that passion from a really young age to get into, professional sports like that?
I think there's some guys don't get into it until they're later in life.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine, Kai Otten, he was a lot older when he got into surfing, and he just kind of went straight to the top. But he had that passion to really just kind of have that mind that keeps wanting to progress. And he just progressed faster than everyone else and caught up and went past them.
Wow.
So you don't have to be from like full child prodigy. You can be later as well. It just depends on how fast you get it and how fast you can click and work things out. And yeah.
Would you say that in terms of the progression of competing international, that you would, for people who don't know your exact path, were you straight away quite in the top group, or did it take years and saying, okay, last time I was 10th, then I was 7th, and would it go like that, or did you actually shoot to the top quite quickly?
Well, through each age group growing up, I was at the top. I'd had a world title at 16, and then I just missed out. I got a second in a world title at 18, and then I qualified in the top young. Well, I was very young to qualify at 19, but it was in the top bracket. And then first year on tour, then I started to, it's still a top bracket. I finished my first year at 7th, and then climbed to 3rd after that. And so I felt throughout my career had been in the top bracket of each age. But then once you get passed onto the world tour, you're against, Kelly Slater, who had been on tour for your entire life as you were growing up. So, we're kind of competing against masters then. And you were kind of a rookie as such.
Yeah.
And that was definitely a harder slog for sure at 19.
Right. Yeah. Can you live off that straight away? Like something, if you don't mind me asking, because there's a lot of travel involved, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, luckily we had sponsors that help, with all the travel and the expenses. Like we got hire cars, houses, airplane tickets. You're probably spending $100,000 just in travel a year.
Wow.
Which is like huge, and you can't do that without support. The support I had was Rip Curl. I had some a few other sponsors for eyewears and things like that helped.
Yeah, cool.
That go along. Yeah, that was the passion and the dream, and they were the support.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it must be an amazing lifestyle if you're into it, like traveling the world, like being just at beautiful locations with amazing waves, hey?
I think, I liked it, but there's definitely times where I go, I'm traveling the world and I haven't seen home.
Yeah.
So you have that still, that kind of double edge, but then you're at home and you're like, oh, I'd like to travel the world. So, it's kind of it just depends on how you're feeling at the time. I think you can be feeling tired and like, I just want to be at home.
Yeah. It certainly can be a job, hey?
Oh, it can be a job. Well, it kind of turned into a job about 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
For a particular reason?
Just more so just family coming and, when you first start out, it's all passion, but then there's a part of it that is a future and a job, and there's all these, and jobs are great. They give you stability in your child's future, your future, where you want to go in life. So there was all those like kind of beautiful things of going, oh, this is a job as well as my passion now. And it kind of made a bit of a transition.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was welcomed.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So what happened then? Like soon after, actually, you went to Hawaii. Like, was it about 4 years ago by now?
Yeah.
It was 2019. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, about 4 years ago, I was in Hawaii. I was going for a world title. I think I was coming fifth at the time. There was, there's like a lot of free surfing that happens in warm-ups and things like that.
Meaning you can do whatever you want?
You can do whatever you want,
Yep.
but you're practicing specifically for that wave or that competition coming up.
Yeah.
And so I was practicing at that wave the day before the competition, and it was massive. And then I took a wipeout right before the competition started, but I was feeling as good as I've ever felt, ready to go, and I took a wipeout that changed the course of my life for sure. I'd had a series of concussions leading up to that when that day I was practicing, I got another one, and it's tipped the scales into a traumatic brain injury.
So you had actually two, did you say?
I had a series of them.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's a lot of the research that's kind of coming out now, is that it often there's a series of concussions that can lead to a major concussion, which is how my severe concussion and traumatic brain injury was so bad. I had some smaller ones leading up to that.
Okay, so it wasn't one big hit. It was actually part of your job is having wipeouts.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Part of the job. So you can't stop these, minor ones from happening.
Yeah.
But they do happen, and it's just, that was kind of the start for our sport to start recognizing that these concussions are happening. We're just not picking up on them.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're out in the ocean, and we're not on a field, and with people can watch us.
Yeah.
And whatnot. So kind of disappearing between waves and being shaken about, it's kind of out of sight. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, concussions are actually probably not that unusual for surfers, right?
No, not at all.
Not at
Yeah.
all. Yeah.
It's been happening for a long time. And there was another guy who had a really serious concussion on tour, and he was off for about 6 to 8 months. He had a lot of problems. I won't mention names, but he never spoke about his story, and it just wasn't, for him, it just wasn't one of those things that he went into. But for me, it was right there. It was right in front of everyone. The cameras were there. I was going for a world title. So it happened, and it was big news, and I feel okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
And bring awareness to it, and try and help some other people that either have that traumatic brain injury or a concussion or anything along those lines.
Yeah.
Help them along their journey.
Yeah, I really respect that. And I guess something that people might not understand is like, life is not the same once it happens, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did you have to go to the hospital? I mean, were you even able to, were you completely wiped out and actually very different person?
So on the early times, there's a lot of stuff I don't have the actual memory of, but I can tell you a story that I've been told. So,
wow.
That's the severity of it.
Sick.
There's those things that I don't know, but I can tell you a story, which is what I've been told. So, so I went to hospital. It was, I think, from what people have told me, there was a lot of commotion. I made it back up to the house that I was staying in, and then went to, there was so much swelling in my brain apparently that's when there was a minor bleed happen. And that's when I got rushed to hospital, and I was kind of in and out of consciousness, they were saying, and all kinds of things were happening. So stayed in hospital probably a good 3 weeks until I was stable. And then there was some touch and go whether or not I was going to have to stay the 6 months in Hawaii before I could fly, or whether or not to put me on a plane to come home. They decided to put me on a plane to come home, and there was obviously complications of doing that. Flying's not that great for anything to do with swelling your brain. And then, yeah, there's lots of things that were struggling there. Like there was trouble with walking, speech, memory, like post-traumatic amnesia, which is kind of 2 times a day. That was as reported as to like, where am I? What am I doing?
Like,
how do I
no
get
idea
here?
whatsoever.
Yeah, no idea.
Yeah.
Get me to, I want to go surfing.
Yeah.
Or you can't go surfing. Kind of like all those types of things that, my brain was almost in a bit of a blissful state, because the brain, it was in so much trauma that a natural response is to forget.
Wow.
So it just wasn't filing away, and I think if it was, it'd be too hard for it to process.
Right. So that's a natural response to actually not overwhelm you.
Totally. It's almost a natural protective mechanism.
Yeah, right.
That it has, which is I've come to appreciate.
Yeah. I guess it must, So during that time, it was probably more stressful for your support people actually than for you, because you were in that state.
A lot more stressful for your support people, and that's probably one thing that I could share with people. That the support that I had was as good as it gets, and it's a lot harder on them in the beginning than it is for yourself, even though you're the one with the actual injury. You're a complete dependent, pretty much. You're dependent on them, and so that's where it becomes a lot more stressful for them, because there's a lot of different things that go on in those early stages that they have to help with.
I guess also identifying that something is really wrong, if you might not feel like that,
especially if it hasn't been identified that you have got a concussion. You might be just at home laying around, I can't get up, what's going on with me? I mean, for sure. I've definitely had friends that have said, I just was at home for 3 weeks and I just could not, I was exhausted, I couldn't move and things like that, and trace it back and they had a concussion. Wow. So there's definitely a lot of those
where there's just no awareness, and it's I haven't heard it much as a combination, like when I think about other sports that have a lot of impact, like people on people, like NFL or what have you, like I get that, but I guess people don't make the connection between surfing and actually that the brain could be so shaken that it starts bleeding, right? That's basically what it is, because
Yeah, for sure. My scans were pretty bad, so that's all from just being shaken, that there was bruises in different areas of the brain. And I guess that connection with surfing, there's been a lot of professionals that have made that connection, but I think my accident was right at a time when there was some different movies coming out about concussion in the football world. There was obviously the it was kind of just coming to light in that NFL over there, and a bit of like a scandal or a cover up, so to speak, and it was kind of in the headlines. And then that's kind of when it hit surfing as well, which is I was taken out of the world title race because of a concussion. And that was now like a lot of the WSL support staff, and not that they weren't trained in it before, they just didn't make the connection that it's happening in surfing as well.
Yeah.
And now they're completely trained and eyes for it. They know exactly what to do. We're still working on a protocol as to like what they have in football, when you see them and say, oh, well, you're out for 2 weeks, no matter what. If that player goes down in concussion, or they see some different signs of a concussion, then they have to come off, complete tasks and things like that. That's a bit harder to implement in surfing when it's only one other guy you're against. If you come out for 10 minutes to do a 10-minute concussion test, there's no more time left in your heat.
Wow.
So you kind of,
Yeah.
it's been hard to get a protocol
Right.
for it, but a lot of other sports have really good protocols now.
Which means that also the flow-on effect on the body can be less, right? You know, if you're careful afterwards, or you realize, okay, I need to rest, I can't have another concussion, because then it would be really bad. These types of things. So it's a long-term strategy that is actually good for their career, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. And there's, handfuls of, I think, surfers in the past, and other, AFL and football, and they've had had 8 concussions and they're retired at 24.
Wow.
Because they brain can't handle anymore, not because it's like, we're trying to be safe, or you just can't, you just won't be able to handle it.
Yeah.
You're talking about your brain, which controls every function in your body, and you're just shaking it up so many times that it doesn't find balance again.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of guys out there that in surfing that I've spoken to since my accident, that it's brought a bit of peace of mind to them and their family about what was happening with them, because they were curious to know how mine happened, what was it, what were my side effects, what were my symptoms, what was I still dealing with, how long was I dealing with it for, and answering those questions to those guys, it helped them click off those like light bulbs in their mind, going, oh, I took that wipeout there. It was directly after that wipeout. My family thought I had, depression, mood problems, blah, 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 all those types of things. And it just starts clicking off for them about the troubles that they faced, either by themselves or with their family. So it was, and I don't know, it's kind of a thing in surfing that people were aware that it was happening, or people knew that these types of accidents were happening, but just kind of wasn't brought to light.
So after a while of other people telling you that you're not allowed to surf, and maybe you slowly recognize that yourself, what did that do to your psyche? Like, because it's like such a snap, suddenly your life would have been so different, and your body would have been so different.
I think, even when I was be 7 or 8 months in, I was still trying to, I didn't cancel the whole year, because I kept thinking that I was okay, which I'm sure the WSO were aware that I wasn't not okay, but they went along with what I was. Oh, look, I could be back next week. I haven't started surfing yet, but I'm pretty sure I'll be fine. So there was definitely those moments that they kind of helped me, guide me through, and had the phone calls with me and whatnot. But I started surfing again later in the year, and it was pretty sporadically. There was lots of side effects from going to do it. I'd started surfing on soft tops and mals and whatnot, but I had to make the jump eventually to a short board. So it started from getting to my feet to just, laying down on a board. But at each step it was all, overwhelming for the senses in the brain and whatnot. So it took a long time to get to a stage where I was surfing. But even then, it's like, okay, how do you get from just like you can surf now to you need to be a professional athlete? and compete in 11 events, 12 events a year, travel the world, not just surf in small waves, but surf in huge waves, and surf hours a day.
Yeah.
So there's quite a process involved to get back there.
Yeah. What were the tools that you found that helped you the most?
So I tried so many different things over the course of the years, still do. But I guess I think one of the biggest things is to like never give up searching on what's going to work, on how that works. And still have to say that's probably the biggest thing, because there's been times that I'd plateaued and just stopped searching, and they were the times that definitely I didn't make as many improvements. Like improvements are harder to make with the brain, because you're pushing an organ that controls everything. So you push that, you exercise that. Say if you lift a weight, you're tearing that muscle for it to regrow and be strong. So you push your brain, you're basically giving yourself symptoms for it to strengthen. So part of recovery is to not give up and completely regain your life as it was. So that was probably the second thing to the recovery, is that don't stop until you can completely regain your life, and completely handle those things, and take little bits at a time. You're going to have side effects when you first start, but it's to push through those side effects until you can handle it all. So that was kind of that was the journey as such. Some of the tools that helped me deal with those side effects was from hyperbaric chambers, really good naturopaths. I stayed away from medications as such.
Totally,
yeah. But I found this thing for exercises that was called DNS, which is dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, and it's so when you're a baby, basically when you're born, and then I watched it with my son, right? And they just roll over naturally, or they crawl naturally. They get up naturally in a certain way. They pull themselves up. They lay on their belly and posture, hold their head up. They're all neuro pathways that we're born with, and over the years you kind of have those, with injuries and whatnot, can break down, and you change, and they're just, some people's postures go, and some people, things just change. And I guess with the head injury, a lot of those things changed. And the fastest way back I found to all my ability to balance and hold my muscles and posture correctly was through these exercises, which were like basically baby's exercises, from crawling patterns to just even stabilizing on my belly, just really basic things, but they're really challenging, and the further you progress along in them, the harder they get. But they're basically just those neuropathways that we're born with. So getting back to those, they were so freeing for my body, especially, and also helping me with clarity in my brain, because my body was now moving more effortlessly, which is what I needed it to do. So I could compete, or not just compete, but surf again, which was giving me less side effects because my body was doing things more effortlessly.
What are side effects that what would they be?
You can have from anxieties to different fight or flight things that get triggered off, over adrenalized, no sleep, headaches, fogginess. You get to the end of the day and just, you could be asked for a spoon and it could take you 10 minutes to figure out what a spoon is.
Wow.
Just kind of, and that was, 8 months after.
Wow.
So like these exercises and things like that were just prolonging that space before the fog or before the headache or before the things like that came in. So I found that a really, really a huge benefit actually, because my job is quite physical. So
Yeah, quite.
and I was trying to get my job back at that stage. So
Yeah.
That's why that one worked well.
Yeah.
Worked well for myself.
Yeah. Did you have some sort of professional psychological support in those times? I can just imagine that I've never been, I'm not aware that I've been really depressed ever or ever completely compromised in my life, but I do know that I've struggled in my life where, it's difficult to be around me or, just people couldn't relate to what was happening, often came from stress and stuff like that really.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, it places really a burden on other people, or just like that's difficult for them too, right? How did you sort of manage that? I'm sure there's a lot of love from your supporters, and that's probably what drove them through it and all the rest of it. But were you quite strategic and like, okay, how can we make this happening and go through this long journey of recovery?
I had lots of support.
Yeah.
I was very lucky. I had sports psychologists. I had my neurologist, who was Professor Paul Macquarie, and we didn't use medication. We used psychologists. We used support systems. We used these exercise things. But the psychology of these head injuries are definitely a huge part to be propped up. I had lots of different strategies. I had I know it sounds a bit funny, but your brain really likes patterns and repetition. I know there's probably like a bit push out there recently, like try things new and explore and go and put yourself in a place where you're completely unknown, but your brain actually struggles in those places. And when my brain was already struggling, it was all about patterns and repetition. So no matter how I felt in the morning, I would do the same pattern and repetition. And that could often it was like a set for the brain.
Yeah.
That it wouldn't, usually it goes off track during the day anyway. Like that was part of, and this is part of the learning about these, that help with the psychology and psychologists and things like that would be chatting to me along the way, is that as long as I got those sets in, your brain would naturally start to come through out of kind of trauma.
Yeah.
So, I guess that is part of the, psychological help, is actually to get to really form a really good start to your day, which it's got nothing to do with psychology, but it's like if you just have a routine, it was just basically a routine, and then obviously just see how the rest of the day went. But,
yeah. To me, like what you describe is basically normally the brain has a lot of capacity, and there's quite a bit of capacity also to do new things. But if it's compromised by bleeding, by
trauma,
right, so many programs might not, or much of the capacity is not actually available at that moment. So if you actually say, right, okay, normally I'm walking somehow, I'm not walking like a child anymore where it's really effortlessly, I actually use a lot, I'm not really efficient with it. So to bring it back and actually release much more of the brain from this task, I will learn again the most efficient way to do that, which is what the baby does.
Yes.
And so you go there and basically just reduce the effort that needs to be done for moving, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Reduce the effort that needed to be done for moving. Reduce the effort that, you wake up in the morning instead of going, what am I going to do today? That's like quite a bit of thought that goes into that I do now. Okay, what's today doing? Whereas then it was like no thought. There's just one routine. You do that routine, get your brain set.
Wow.
And yeah, that's kind of that capacity was so reduced that it had to be really efficient. Sometimes you just wouldn't be able to do it, and that was okay. But it was the intention set of like that's your routine to do that. To bring your brain back into a bit more of kind of bandwidth and being able to use more of your brain. But yeah, it was kind of like a lot of reduced things early on. And then as it got on, it was more like, okay, start to take your brain to those areas, those new areas, slowly introduce those. Each step I slowly introduced new things. There was always, 1 step forward, 3 steps back.
Yeah.
It was a lot of the time. But that intention of kind of to keep moving forwards, even though you are going to take steps back. But that's, I guess, like anything that you're going to exercise and try to grow.
Yeah.
So it basically was like a muscle,
Yeah, it sounds like that.
And there's like a lot of the psychological help that I received at the start too. You just don't feel like it's ever going to heal. But I guess if you break both your legs, you don't think you're ever going to walk again. Like you're sitting there, you but eventually everything heals and you're not just walking again. You can walk fast, you can run, and then you're sprinting. You can do all that again. It all heals. So, and I guess it's the same with the brain.
Did you ever struggle during that time? Because it sounds like you just had a plan and you were executing it. It sounds easy from my side, but was that, yeah?
No, not at all. Like, that was not easy for sure. Like there was times I couldn't execute the intention that I'd set, or not just myself, but my neurologist and my psychologist, and they're kind of all working together as a team, along with the physical trainers. They were we all had that intention to go that way, but we all knew that there's going to be plenty of days that are completely backwards. Plenty of times where, all the things that you kind of want to move forwards are just not there. So actually, I had this great picture of what a head injury recovery looks like. And it literally had like a start line. I wish I could show you, but there was like this. Here we go. I'll draw it here. Here's the start line. And then here's the finish of where you're going to finish with your head injury. Like you're at the bottom here. This is what a head injury looks like.
Wow. It's not one graph. It's actually just going all over the place.
And then you get forwards. There.
And eventually, wow, that's like a labyrinth.
That is a head injury recovery right there. And that, I didn't make that up. That came from a professor. So
looks like spaghetti.
And I often referred back to that photo. Or that picture.
Yes.
Was like, I'm moving forwards, but it is just a complete mess. But that intention of going forwards, that's why I kind of touched on that at the start, is that intention to never give up.
Yeah.
To keep going forwards is basically the biggest, I think, the biggest tool.
Yeah.
Because then you can find what you need to find. You might bump into people you need to bump into, things like that. If you have that, like, I'm still striving to get where I need to go.
Yeah.
No matter how much that goes off track, and
Oh, that's actually a lot of help, I guess, that people just understand it's not a linear process. You might go almost back to the starting point, but
Mhm.
I'm sure, like, with the coaches that you had, they probably would explain the brain also, like, the brain does that and then
Mm.
can go further after that, but it just needs to reset completely for a moment again.
Mm. Well, it's like, yeah, I had that analogy. I had other analogies of like, okay, you wanted to grow your muscle. Like, what if you just lifted a weight that was too big?
Yes.
There's too much tearing, and you get lactic acid, and then you're limping around on that, after you did squats or something, or if you did that, you can't lifting up a piece of paper is hard because you've just lifted a 100-kilo weight the day before. So it's the same with the brain. If you took off too much, you've got these side effects in your brain that now finding a spoon is too hard because you've just taken off too much.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of those little analogies that I kept always referring back to, is that it's going to get better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a process, and it's a muscle.
Did you ever think you wouldn't make it?
Oh man, so many times.
Yeah.
I think, even at the start of this year, like, there's still things that I'm trying to achieve with my body and training and pushing myself back to the level that I believe I was before the accident. The start of this year, I had that exact thought. I don't think I'm going to get there. Like, I don't know if it's possible. And sure enough, I just kept pushing and pushing, and I had a lot more side effects again at the start of this year. But I had that intention, and I bumped into the person I needed to bump into, and I ran with that, and then now I'm through that stage again, and I've got so much more improvement that I could ever have imagined out of that area that I at the start of this year. I had that same feeling. I don't know if I'm going to get there. So, and I guess that's where these recoveries, you can kind of stop, but a lot of them are just in life as well. Like you take on a new challenge. It seems kind of a bit impossible at the start, but you start taking steps. You have the conversations. You get into it, and then all of a sudden you're doing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you ever see that as a blessing, what happened to you? Is there any silver lining to say, actually,
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes and no. There's times I'm like, that was just trauma. You don't need it.
Yes, yeah.
And then other times I'm like, well, I guess there's a lot of things that I'm a lot better at now, purely because that was so bad.
Yeah.
That it's just given me a bit more perspective on, like, outside of surfing now I do a lot more things. Whereas before I was just surfing as such. Whereas now I kind of do a lot of different things, purely because I feel like I've learnt to just switch off one area and go into a different area. Maybe just not surfing for so long, and having lots of different things has helped that part of my brain just kind of click into gear. I am a lot older now too. It's been a long time.
Oh, you come across extremely wise now. Maybe you have always been. I didn't meet you before the accident.
I don't know.
I could imagine that there's a lot of gratefulness probably coming from that point of, like, wow, I wasn't able to know what a spoon is, and now I'm competing on the world tour again.
Yeah. No, it's definitely pretty grateful for the support that I had around me, and the journey itself. You can kind of sit back sometimes, and I get them a few times a year, I'd say. Sit back and just really, a lot of people don't like to say it, but sometimes I sit back and I do feel quite proud of what I came through. And,
all right, yeah. Hell yeah.
I just feel like that nice feeling of, like, man, that's a long way to go. And not a long way, that you've come a long way. So
yeah.
That kind of feeling is a nice feeling to have.
Well, listening to you, it sounds impressive, because I could imagine when the body's not doing what you want to do, or it actually rebels when you go too fast and all of that, that's yourself, like part of yourself is not collaborating with where you want to go. It must be intense.
It's frustrating for sure. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think there's for sure a lot of
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, and you're back in it now.
Yeah, so in August this year, I completed. So what started my kind of last phase of recovery, I was really struggling with rotation, so spinning.
Oh, okay. On the board.
On the board, and just on land. Really struggling with say jumping on land, let alone in the water. And they were causing all different side effects, from spasms to no sleep at all for a long time.
All right, bro. Like,
Yeah.
that's intense. Just from an exercise like that, just from a move.
From a move, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And so that, at the start of the year, though, I set the intention to take myself there. I had lots of different side effects. Went to hospital a few times again. Just these side effects being so bad that I needed to go to be monitored, and got let out and whatnot. But out, found the people I need to find, and did 3 to 5 times of monotonous routines and rehab for a lot to do with my eyes, spatial awareness. So I was still getting all the way up from the head injury to now. Every time I close my eyes or try and fall to sleep, my body would shock itself back to consciousness because it loses its bearing on where it sits in space and time, I guess. When you fall to sleep, you can kind of relax, whereas my brain didn't know where it was horizontally or vertically, so it perceives that it's in threat and danger, so it shocks awake. So the recovery I did has now completely stopped all of that. Wow. And I can spin, I can do airs, I have lots of efficiency in those areas now. And that was all completed by August this year.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and that was 3 to 5 times a day. So monotonous.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Done. So, but when you think about your brain, so that the injury has stopped long time ago. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the brain as such, other than it's now a space that needs to be reorganized and needs to learn certain things again. So concussion will happen to you again, right? And as you said, like, that's normal for surfing, right?
I've had other concussions since.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure, it's normal.
Yeah. So it's just the frequency that you want to watch, so that and anyone should watch during the day, right?
The frequency
of concussions.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've had other ones since, but I know how to handle them.
Wow.
I've had 2 or 3 since the major one.
Wow.
Yep. One was in hospital, but I was recovered within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So out of the nasty symptoms, the things that I'm touching on with the eyes and the those types of kind of spatial awareness things, they were long-lasting effects from my major one. So these other minor ones were like minor setbacks, but because I know how to handle them, I was almost like, this is a breeze. This is nothing.
Yeah.
These ones are like so easy to handle. So in some sense, like the ones that I've had since are like gave me more confidence.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what I need, because I was a little bit nervous to.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get those things in life that get handed to you, and I had that major event, but I needed a minor one to break the ice.
Yeah.
Of, hey, you're going to go back to your sport, that you're going to get injured again. So, like, here's a little one to show yourself that you can recover from it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I had those along the way. since then. But they've all been recovered and successful at it. But it's definitely something now that I am, I think, completely recovered. I take a lot of precautionary measures and quite thoughtful around not doing things too sporadically in the surf.
Yes. Right.
Being, helmets and, making sure that I only take the right waves.
So that's sort of part of the protocol that you're sort of thinking of, and that you would like to have other surfers access to, so that they know, to actually avoid concussions to start with.
Yes.
There are certain things to do, and then I guess when you have a concussion, you now know through the small ones, they can actually be handled because of what you know.
They can be handled quite easily with the right exercises, the right rehab, and the right amount of time frame. You can recover from them quite quickly. But you get those small ones, and then you don't give it the right time frame. The next time you get another one, that time frame comes like times 4. Get another one in that time frame, then that time frame just blows out, and you've got all of a sudden people that are really struggling and really kind of lost their bearings on how it's all happened, because it's been a series that they haven't recovered from.
Gotcha. I think Melanie has a question.
Yeah, what's your specific, so with the small concussions, for example, what's the specific routine that you do to actually help yourself? You said now you really have that nailed down, you know exactly how to look after yourself when that happens. Yep. What would that be, so other people kind of know when, if something like that happens to them, they have an idea of what might work for them?
Okay, so I don't surf. It stops. That's one. Then 2 is kind of just kind of try and relax with yourself mentally of like, okay, I'm not going to be able to perform the tasks that I usually perform each day. I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes from. If you've got a concussion and then you're going to try and perform the same task you perform every day, that's just not going to happen. You're going to be huge anxiety, depression. There's like, and that all goes in a 2 to 3 week time period, but you can make life really hard for yourself in that 2 to 3 weeks. So one of the big things is just kind of like all bets are off. Like there's some things you're going to need to do during the day, but that's not a major. You might not be able to get off the couch. You just might be completely wiped out. So just knowing that you're like, that's my priority in this next 3 weeks is recovery. So once you have that, then I would go back to quite a basic exercise routine in the morning. Nothing to do with your heart rate, more just like different DNS patterns. So it was like quite easy postures, because you've had a concussion, so your brain's a bit injured. So the patterns you'd be doing are just kind of let your body naturally kind of relax a bit more. Different crawl patterns and things like that. You can do different types of meditation, like a yoga nidra. You can do body scans, breathing, all kind of different things to just bring your body into a relaxed state. So I'd have, from saunas to I tried lots of different things to hyperbaric chambers, but just be aware that your brain could respond differently to any one of these things that I'm saying pretty much.
Yeah.
Mine was didn't respond very well to meditation, which I loved it a bit prior, but after the accident I didn't respond well to meditation at all. Purely because closing your eyes, I had such a big problem with my eyes that close your eyes to do meditation, and it was just like, what is going on? But so those different things, it's and then like any injury, it heals naturally. So it's more about the time frame, and just having those basic little patterns that you can achieve and do, and wait out that time. If you have, say, a major concussion, whether a TBI or something, and you've got some changes, then I'd suggest you see your OT and your occupational therapist and your neurologist and things like that to kind of set those different routines that you have. But with concussions, it's more about that initial diagnosis, and then going, okay, like, just relax for the next 3 weeks. Or everything about your life's going to be harder for 3 weeks. And then, but once that time is gone, it's to increase everything slowly. So after the initial 3 weeks, it's not just like, great, I'm just going to go and surf 6 to 10 foot waves again. I'm just going to go and surf a 2 foot wave, a 3 foot wave, build yourself up slowly after that. So whether if you surf or if you're football or whatever it is, just it's a slow progression after that. So.
Probably the same if you're not even a sports person, you know, like if you just have it in a car accident or something like that, it would be the same thing, you know.
Yeah, like if you take 3 weeks off, don't go back and start out a 10-hour day.
Yeah.
Like just try and get part-time, or try and, or if you do start back, be really aware that by the end of the day you're going to be a mess, and make sure you tell your partner, because often they have to sit by.
Yeah. Was that something that Nikita needed to sort of learn herself, actually, because you would be a different person for a while, hey?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. She was really great with that. Just those, each push was quite a big backlash. So, you know, I could be just on the couch and questions could be coming at me, and she'd be like, you've pushed yourself again.
Right.
Yeah. So like we've had those times throughout, and she's just been really great, you know, and, you know, just kind of working around the work that I'm doing. And, it's kind of a process for the whole family or the whole support team.
Yeah.
Especially with concussions.
Right. Just a very specific question. Did you look into diet at all and changed it up a little bit, like getting more?
Yeah, I guess I'd only briefly touched on that with naturopaths. So that was a huge help.
All right.
Lots of so I had lots of different naturopathic remedies that I found helped, from just different fish oils. I had different magnesiums that could help that cross into the brain. Same with the fish oil. Make sure there's different ones that are good for the brain, different ones that are not as good. What else? There's a lot of things you can take. I think I just used it for more specifically what I wanted out of it. I took a lot of melatonin, which is just basically for sleep. I took a lot of there's some names of these things that I don't know, but there's like I spent a lot of money there.
Yeah,
but lots of different powders, lots of different tablets. Super happy with all of it though.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you're like, is this really doing anything? Your brain is the most powerful thing there is. So, like, sometimes you might go, what is this stuff doing?
Yeah.
But it's because your brain's basically overriding all of it anyway. But it does help in the long run.
Yeah. Love your brain.
Yeah.
So that's a great protocol. Thanks for sharing that. I think that will help people really to feel themselves into a new existence, really, like because that concussion really changes, I guess, how the world looks for them. But if someone is just at that space, or their relatives, want to figure out, okay, how can we actually help this person? How do we get on that journey? What would be the sort of the top 3 things that you would do, like at the very beginning when okay, this is a major concussion, we just had that news that was a really heavy one, what would be the 3 things you would recommend people doing to set them on the right path?
And they've had the diagnoses and they've got the doctors that have, so they're obviously a pretty key part. But I would have to say a routine to set some stability in your life that's going to be chaos for a bit. A psychologist, for sure, and some type of in the routine I'd probably have part of like a whether it's a walk or just something to start your day, like a breakfast routine, a walk, or anything like that, to start your day, because that's when your brain has the most bandwidth as such. That's when it's going to have your best chance of functioning that day, before it does turn to a bit of chaos. And I guess the psychologist is going to kind of help you understand that it is chaos, especially if it's a severe concussion. And then the third I'd have to say would be some therapy, some type of something for yourself, like a hyperbaric chamber to like an infrared sauna, like we're sitting in here right now, to something like pretty, not too aggressive, but some type of therapy. That would probably be my top 3.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
So what are your goals going forward? You're going strong again, and do you have some certain goals that you're working towards?
I do. Haven't stopped.
Yeah.
So I guess I've come back from the head injury, and I guess somewhere in but prior to having it, I wanted to win a world title, and I felt like that was taken away at the time, but I feel ever so close now to being able to achieve that. And there's a lot of good surfers out there right now, but I feel like I'm at a recovery point where I can give it my best shot. Whether or not that happens, that's a different story, but that's my goal, that's my dream. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, you've gone and tried your best. And I feel like I've ticked off a lot of the boxes that with my recovery along the way. It's kind of been a bit of a health journey as well, to be able to put myself into a place to go for a world title. Is your health has to be back up there, and sleep's happening, and life's good, and that's kind of a bit of a goal.
Epic.
That I'm working towards.
Yeah. Great. Hey, I normally finish off podcasts with 3 more or less simple questions. One is just like, what are the 3 things that get you up in the morning out of bed? Like, what are the 3 motivators for you to all right, day's starting?
Yeah. Well, Varley.
Yes,
comes in.
Yeah.
Can I have a banana?
That's
the first thing that gets me out of bed. The second thing is, if I didn't get out of bed when that happened, it's something falling over in the kitchen. Oh, what's he smashed? But no, like it's definitely, a lot to do with, at home. It's a lot to do with my family, like what are we going to do? Are we going to go to the beach, or, what I got on for the day. So I love to think about going surfing. So just to look at the ocean, that definitely gets me out of bed as well. But man, mostly it's my son that gets me out of bed. I'll tell you what.
Sounds familiar, definitely.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Hey?
Yeah.
So it's seriously like your alarm clock, like 5:30.
Yeah, pain and pleasure.
Yeah. I mean, he has this one saying that's, Dad, I hear the birdies. I wake up now. And if the birds are going off at 4, oh my God. So yeah, no, it's kind of, I know it's pretty cool way to wake up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. What's the second question would be like, what's the one thing that you're really into at the moment? Like, you know, could be anything really, but you know, what's the one thing that's like, you know, this is new for me. This is what I really enjoy right now.
Oh yeah, right. For me, I'm really into kind of building a house.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right into it.
Yeah, I saw that on Instagram. You
Yeah.
monitor the whole thing and, you know, share it with the masses. Cool.
Yeah. So just really loving that at the moment. You know, I guess you can have the stressful side of building a house, but I've kind of seen it as like a hobby. Like,
Yeah.
I'm building a house. This is quite fun, and trying to figure out all different ways and what do you like and what do you want. So first house that I've built.
Yeah.
So
And it was lots of friends involved as well. That must be fun.
yeah, it's great. All your mates are there. Like,
Yeah.
I guess that's the age we're all at, and you know, everyone's kind of doing their jobs and whatnot. So it's a great time. Yeah. I'm
Cool.
really into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
The last question is quite a philosophical one.
Mm-hmm.
There's no right or wrong, of course, but why do you think we exist? Like, why do you think we're actually on this earth?
For experiences. Yeah. I don't know if there's some great meaning as to like we're all here to achieve something or anything like that, but I definitely do believe we're here to have experiences, whether they're good or bad or however you see them, then it's an experience. So yeah, I do believe that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Love that.
Yeah.
Man, thank you so much for coming.
No worries.
That was
Thank you for
really
having me.
insightful. Yeah, no, it was great. So thanks for your time, and that sharing was amazing. And man, good luck. I hope it goes all well. I'm sure it will. It sounds like you're really well set up, and you know, these types of bruises that one gets along the way, were more than a bruise, can really, you know, make you stronger. It sounds like it's definitely the case for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So far, so good. Good support team, and yeah, we're well underway.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Go well.
Thank you.